So, Ron, I just want to kind of ask you where we left off there about mindset. You know, being an athlete your entire life, being an IFBB pro, and then going through an injury like that. How did you personally kind of work through that and come back to the point where you just competed this last weekend? What was your mindset? How did you personally work through it?
Well, I think for me, one of the things that helped me was the fact that I've been down this road before. As I had said before, when I was about 27, I had the bicep ruptures and I had those repaired. And I think one of the things that's associated with a lot of bodybuilders is that we all started off being gym rats. And there's a psychological attachment to the gym. And we don't realize it's more of a psychological attachment until you absolutely can't do it anymore because of injury. So one of the things I realized during that time where I couldn't train was that it's not the end of the world as far as your physique. Muscle memory is real and it will bounce back. So I didn't have this phobia that a lot of people who've never really had a serious injury have, because I've been down that road before. So I was pretty confident that as long as things were cosmetically repaired, I can do my part and get back to where I was.
So what was your decision then, or how did you come about the decision to compete in the Indy Pro after that injury?
Well, like I said, my rehab and development process is a little slower than expected. Again, we as athletes, we hear one number and we always try to take off a little time from that estimate because of who we are, we believe we can do. And my estimate for an average person, I was actually behind that, which was really, really surprising to me. But after I was seeing some things and I was able to do some push-ups and range of motion was fine, I went to my coach, Abdullah, and I went to Chris Psycho and I said, listen, I want to prepare to compete again. I want to do the Indy Pro. I understand I'm coming off injury and I haven't had a real off season. However, I think I have the type of physique and I have the type of muscle memory and development to where I think I'm a candidate to try this. So let's just work hard for 4 weeks and see how my body develops. And then we'll confirm or not if I'm going to be able to do it. And that's what we did and it worked out.
So in terms of this past prep for the Indy Pro, compared to maybe some of your previous preps, obviously you were coming off the injury, but how did the prep go? And why don't you just talk about some of the details of this past prep?
Okay. So one of the interesting things about this particular prep that I hadn't really experienced before was that I've been commuting to work. I live about 45 miles away from my job now, which is kind of different than my previous preps. So there's a lot of driving involved in my day-to-day life. And one of the things that Chris and I set up was training with him 3 times a week. And his gym is another 30 minutes from work. So I'm driving to work an hour, I'm driving to his gym 30 minutes, driving back from his gym and all that kind of good stuff. So I always tell people from the moment I wake up in the morning until I get done with training, it's extremely busy and it's a lot of things going on. It's a lot of driving, then me working, and then me transitioning to, around the worker to around the bodybuilder, and then back to work again. And then I fight my way through traffic. So from that standpoint, trying to balance my professional life and my professional bodybuilding life is a little bit different. But as far as the prep itself, it was very different and unique in that Chris and I trained in a closed off gym setting. It wasn't a commercial gym where people are doing their own thing. It was just he and I and his assistant Prince going through it old school, very Dorian Yates like, either no music or some heavy metal in the background. And we just went at it for about 3 months.
Now, in terms of, let's talk about cardio for a second. What did that look like on this prep for you? And how did that compare to previous preps?
Cardio was all over the place. And the thing is, cardio, much like diet, is totally dependent on your appearance. So there were a couple of peak times where I was doing 2 45-minute sessions a day, all the way down to no cardio for the last week or so. So it just really depends on how you look. So I kind of ran the gamut. I would say the most consistent formula we had was probably 35 minutes in the morning fasted and about 10 to 15 minutes post training. That was probably the most consistent variation.
And then I also want to kind of ask you, Ron, how did your tricep injury, how did that kind of tie into this prep or not? I mean, did it kind of bounce back? Did you have any issues, or was it kind of just smooth sailing in regards to that?
It definitely wasn't smooth sailing. It definitely was not. And I leaned heavily on Chris to be creative, to help us kind of work around some things, especially very early on, where, we were trying some movements that I had not tried in over a year, because it's a careful balance when you come back from an injury, whereas you want it to get better, but you also don't want any setbacks. So some of the things that you might want to try out, you kind of hesitate to, because although it might be a milestone, it could also set you back. So we took baby steps when it came to certain things. We avoided compromising positions. But I'd say about halfway through, we were able to do pretty much everything again.
Now, in terms of how the competition at the Indy Pro unfolded this past weekend, I know
Yeah.
you did a post on your Instagram, and I really respected just kind of your perspective. But for those of those that are listening or maybe watching this that didn't get a chance to catch what you said, what are some of your thoughts? What are some of your takeaways from this past weekend's Indy Pro?
Well, the first thing I want to establish is that I am a maniacal competitor, not just with the development of my own physique, but heck, I want to win. I want to be known as a winner. I want to be first place. I want all the accolades. I want a big check, and I want to qualify for the Olympia. So I want to put that out there. I'm definitely not that person that's just like, well, I identify as a winner, so I'm a winner today. No, I'm not that guy. So I want to put that out there. However, one of the things that I think makes losing special is that the risk is losing. Okay. If there was no loser, winning wouldn't feel so good. And this weekend, I was not the winner. I wasn't really even close to the winner according to my placings. However, the one thing I tell people with regards to like bodybuilding is it's extremely subjective. Take what the judges say and take their critiques in stride. But with that said, you also have to keep in mind, if you felt good about your body and your physique at 10 a.m., at 10:30 after judging is over, you can't feel horrible about the same thing you felt good about. Okay. So do I feel good about my package and improvements that we made? Yes. Am I happy about my placing? No. What I still have improvements I'd like to make if I got first place? Yes. So that's my stance. I don't like the results, but we're not going to go ahead and reinvent the wheel if we were already happy with getting down the road to begin with. So as far as general feedback, it's kind of been some of the similar things I've heard throughout my career. I'm a very tall bodybuilder, and I have a very large and wide frame. And although that's beneficial, there also comes with a lot more homework I have to do to kind of fill out and have the same pound per square inch appearance of my shorter competitors.
So what is kind of your plans going forward in terms of competing this year or in the future?
Right now, I'm kind of in flux. Like I said, I'm still kind of emotionally in the moment, trying not to make a decision based on my emotional state, basically. I think your natural inclination when things like this happen is to either be completely dejected or so frustrated you rush to get that taste out of your mouth and you make it even worse. So I'm just going to take my time and make a heady decision about it. On the table is continuing to compete fairly, like I say recently, but in the near future. And you also have basically just moving on to a true off season where I'm completely healed, where I can get back to where I was before the injury, which was in the middle of an off season, and then go from there. So those are the things that are in play right now. I have not made my decision.
So I want to ask you about, you have a professional career, like you mentioned, outside of bodybuilding. You're also an IFBB Pro competitive bodybuilder. Do you like having that balance between like a professional career and being a professional bodybuilder? Would you prefer being able to be like a full-time bodybuilder where you have the sponsors and you can just eat, sleep, and train? What's kind of your mindset on that? And what would you maybe recommend to some of the younger people out there that are getting into bodybuilding? Is it important to kind of have that other career outside of bodybuilding? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm glad you said that. I want what I can't have, okay? Which is I want the stability and the financial flexibility that my career provides me, while being able to say time out for like 6 months and live, breathe like, professional bodybuilder full time while still getting my check, right? That's what I want. Now, if I had to pick, um, looking at the landscape, looking how things are, I would 100% take the situation that I'm in now. Because although it's a little bit more work, I also realize that it can be done at the same level as someone who's a professional bodybuilder full time. Um, and the reason I say that I prefer this route is because there are only a few guys who can who have been able to really carve out a very nice living just being a professional bodybuilder. And everyone else just becomes this regurgitated version of a guy that's going from supplement company to supplement company, trying to sell you t-shirts and, oh, I got a booth. And it's like, man, that's more work than a damn career. And there's no stability to it. And I always think to myself, like, well, what is this guy or this gal going to do when they're 50 years old? And nobody really cares that they were top whatever at this bodybuilding show. And now they've kind of boxed themselves in. So in effect, they become that singer or that singing group that has some new hits out. And everybody's like, yeah, but we like your old stuff. I came here to hear that one song, Papa was a Rolling Stone. I don't want to hear the new stuff. So much respect to those guys and the level of work and content that they have to put out constantly, workout videos, try my product. I'll be here at this booth. That's a lot of work, different kinds of work too. And it doesn't really naturally suit my personality. I've been trying to do a much better job of doing things like this and putting out more content, but I like the ability to do that when I want to. And then when I want to be a hermit, I can.
Right. Now, we're going to kind of start wrapping up our conversation here, Ron, but I want to just touch on a couple more things, kind of some takeaways maybe for the listeners, the viewers, kind of looking back over your bodybuilding career. Do you have any words of wisdom or any advice for maybe people, again, kind of just getting into bodybuilding, just getting into competing? Maybe they're thinking about quitting their full-time job and trying to make it as a pro, what have you. Is there any advice or, again, words of wisdom that you would like to kind of share over your bodybuilding experiences with any of the listeners or the viewers?
Yes. I would say that there are many versions of successful pro bodybuilders. Okay. You have guys who, like I said, have held down full-time jobs, guys that haven't, guys that are more flamboyant, guys like Dorian Yates who, they had to live like a monk. But the one thing that I would say is consistent throughout is you have to have a passion for it. You cannot be overly attached to the end and you never love the means. And I think that one of the things that's happened over the last decade or so is that as the sport has blossomed and grown and been able to touch more people in different types of physiques, there has been a watering down effect with regards to mentality. Everybody has this inclusionary type of feeling. And the problem with that is when it comes to a sport like bodybuilding, like a weekend like this weekend where I didn't get, the best placing in the world, it can be very, very detrimental to a person's psyche if they're not attached to the means. Because if your end was a placing and something like that happens to you, you may not psychologically be able to bounce back. So my advice to a person is fall in love with the process, live with the results, and don't let the results define going back to the process all over again. And from a very specific standpoint, be very, very communicative to the people in your life with regards to what you're trying to do, and find a place for them to either be productive in that process or to not be a hindrance. As I've kind of transitioned to being more of a coach as well as doing my own thing as a bodybuilder, one of the things that I end up coaching more so than training and diet is helping someone structure and organize their personal life so that they don't freaking destroy their marriage or their family time or as a wife or a husband for this bodybuilding thing. You know, helping them find the right words to use to gain encouragement and confidence in the process. And if you can't get the encouragement, at least have someone that says, I'm not going to be your cheerleader, but I'm not going to be your roadblock either.
Great. Love that. That's excellent. Now, you just mentioned kind of getting into coaching a little bit of yourself. How long have you been coaching, and what does that kind of look like in terms of, you know, do you, people reach out to you through Instagram? How does that process go if somebody is interested in connecting with you in terms of coaching or training?
Yeah. So I got into coaching officially a little over 3 years ago. And it wasn't something I kind of set out to do. It was kind of like bodybuilding in itself, whereas a lot of people just kept coming to me. I've always helped out people, but just on a peer-to-peer basis, whether it's having someone tag along as a training partner with me or just someone ask me some questions. But I never really had the confidence that I knew enough about enough topics to say, yeah, I'll coach you, because it's like, well, if you got to go back and ask other people too much, you probably don't know what you're talking about, you know? So I have a pretty good handle on it. I've had some big time successes over the last year. I've helped 2 guys turn pro, very, very hardworking gentlemen. And I have had some other people have some very, very high placings. I truly love it. It's something that gives back to you, especially when you deal with very, very hardworking, disciplined people. As far as the nuts and bolts of working with me, I have a fitness page called Regal Fitness by RPG. I will occasionally tag it on my personal page, but my Regal Fitness page is dedicated to my athletes, showcasing them, their training, their accomplishments, upcoming shows. And I really try to just give them a platform that's all their own and let them go ahead and run with it. I usually, like I said, have clients reach out to me through direct message. And if they're local, I'll actually reach out with them. We'll get in the gym. I'll see what they got. I'll kind of give them a performance evaluation of how I think that they are training, things that they need to improve upon. Most of my clients are through correspondence because of the distance. And in those cases, I really lean heavily on video correspondence, sending me videos and techniques of some of their training, maybe things I can kind of instill upon them. And I really lean heavily on the diet and posing, because obviously without me being there in person, I really rely on this person following through on those things and being very, very honest with me.
What do you feel like, as you being a coach yourself, what do you feel like coaching has kind of taught you, maybe about yourself, about other people, about, you know, bodybuilding? What have you learned through coaching other people?
Honestly, the biggest thing about coaching and coaching other people is that timing is everything. And what I mean by timing is that not just nutrition, as far as when to change somebody's diet, when to give them a cheat meal or refeed, if you will, when to change up routines, when to say the right thing and what to say, because you're going to have different personalities. You know, people see a lot of my training footage with my clients. I think the things that stand out to them is more of the drill sergeant type, but that's like 10% of what's going on. I'm instructing them, I'm talking to them, try to be very, very detailed. I explain to them that my goal for anyone that trains with me for a lengthy period of time is that if they were to go to another gym or train with someone else, they would stop at some point and say, who trained you? Because this is exactly what I'm looking for. Your breathing is great, your intensity is great. You know what I mean? That makes me feel great. You know, if I just get somebody that's a genetic freak and they win everything, but they didn't learn anything, I just got lucky. You know what I mean? If I get somebody that doesn't have the greatest genetics in the world, but they progress and they're coachable, that makes me feel good that they reached whatever pinnacle their physique allowed them to reach. So timing is very important. That's one thing I kind of learned when dealing with people, knowing what to say at the right time to bring out the best in them. Some people need a kick in the rear end. Some people need to hear that they're doing really, really good, keep up the good work. And you just kind of have to feel your way for which personality types you're dealing with and at the right time. You know, those two methods can apply to the same person, but you might need a kick in the rear end for 4 weeks up from a show. And then 2 days out from a show, it's like, well, no, it's time to be positive. It's time to get them focused. It's time for them to feel like they're the best bodybuilder on earth going into the show so that they can go ahead and pose that way. So timing is hugely important when it comes to coaching.
For sure. All right. So Ron, last couple of questions I have for you, and then we'll wrap it up. What is your ultimate bodybuilding goal in terms of an IFBB Pro?
My ultimate bodybuilding goal is to be Mr. Olympia. But within that, I also realize that in order for that to happen, I need to reach my peak potential. And if I reach my peak potential, there's still no guarantee that I can be Mr. Olympia. So my goal within that is to do my part. So I have to reach my peak potential. In that way, I feel like if you reach your peak potential and you put it on the table and it's your absolute best, you can, and you should be able to live with the results. So although my goal involves a subjective element that is not me, I do have control of the part that is me. So my goal is just to take my genetic potential, which I think is very, very up there, especially considering my height, push it to its highest peak and limit, and then, live with the results. So that's my goal as a bodybuilder, is just to reach my potential. And I think my potential is good enough.
All right. Last question I have for you, Ron, and then I'll kind of give you the final word here before I wrap it up. What do you feel like bodybuilding has taught you, or what do you feel like bodybuilding has given you?
Wow. Okay. So I think bodybuilding has taught me that discipline is hugely important when it comes to achieving a person's goals. I think that whether you're a successful bodybuilder as far as winning shows or not, if you go through a contest prep and you give it your all, there's so many things that you can learn about yourself and what you're able to do, as far as doing things that you don't like to do because you have a goal, abstaining from things that you want to do because you have a goal, showing up, giving it your all time after time, and taking your body to a certain place applies to so many things in the world. If I didn't have a passion for bodybuilding, let's say I had a gumption or a passion for real estate or, stock brokerage, I know that if I took that same passion for bodybuilding, I can be a financial wizard, and it's not a cop-out. It's just that I've just never been a passionate person when it comes to, I want to make all the money in the world. Of course, I want to run into a bag of money, but I've never been overly motivated by it. But I say that to say, if you ever needed confidence in something that you wanted to do and you went through bodybuilding prep, you have all the evidence in the world that you can go ahead and achieve that. And that's one of the things that bodybuilding has done for me, as far as that gift that keeps on giving, is that it's one of the things in life, along with some other experiences, of course, military and whatnot, that you can draw from and say, you know what, if I can do this, I can do anything.
Perfect. Well said. All right. Before I do the outro here, Ron, do you have any final thoughts or any final words that you want to leave with us? And then if you have any shout outs, any sponsors, anything like that, the floor is yours. And then I'll close us out.
Yeah. So when it comes to things like this, I try not to get very specific and personal, only because I'm always going to forget somebody. So I feel much more comfortable just kind of blanket statement these things. But I really appreciate everyone who's ever done anything or said anything positive, encouraging towards me, whether it's the last couple of days in prep and you see me at the water fountain and you say, hey, man, you're looking great, or the day after a show and be like, hey, man, I know you didn't win, but I had you winning. Or even, men like yourself, man, reaching out to me for some of the things that I may be able to offer the bodybuilding community. It really means a lot to me. As far as like sponsors, I appreciate everyone that's helped me with every meal, supplement, transportation, lodging, the whole 9 yards. You guys know who you are. If I don't say anything to you about you now, obviously I'll take care of you on Instagram and whatnot. But yeah, man, although bodybuilding is an individual sport, and it is, if you're looking to help someone along the way, trust me, we greatly appreciate it. And that also goes towards our individual goals as well. So just because it's individual, don't think that there aren't people behind the scenes that help us go in that right direction. Overall, as far as going to my last word, just keep your head up, people. Keep working hard. Have a very, very positive mindset. I think that positivity is extremely underrated. I think that if you surround yourself with that attitude, you surround yourself with positive people, people who work hard, it's going to have a pronounced effect as far as the giving back to you and picking you up on days where you need it as well. So that's pretty much my piece. You know, I don't want to ramble too much, but I just appreciate everybody that's ever appreciate some of the things that I do and I bring to the table.
Awesome. Well, Ron, I just want to say thank you for taking some time out of your Monday. I know you just got back in from the Indy Pro, but thank you so much for taking some time to share your story and share some of your wisdom and insights. Okay.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate the platform and I love your work.
For sure. All of you who are tuning into another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you to you. If it wasn't for all of you, the podcast wouldn't exist. As we wrap up this conversation with Ron, I just want to ask you two quick favors. If you haven't hit that subscribe button on YouTube yet, please make sure you do that. That's really important because I release all these episodes first on YouTube, and then I'll distribute them to iTunes and some of the other podcast platforms. So if you want to stay up on all the podcast episodes current, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. That's just Behind the Muscle on YouTube. And then finally, one last favor I'd ask of all of you, take this episode with Ron, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Ron. Make sure you tag Behind the Muscle so that we know that you listen specifically to this episode and found great value in it. And if you want to find Ron on Instagram, just go down into the show notes, whether that's on iTunes or YouTube. His Instagram handle will be there along with Behind the Muscle. So if you can't find Ron on Instagram, just go down into the show notes and his handle will be there. The link will be there for you guys to find Ron. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.